Good evening. Okay. Good evening and welcome to our Judicial Candidates Town Hall, put on by a group of concerned citizens. We were going to do a coin toss, but we've decided not to do that, to see who talks first tonight. We're going to start out by thanking the host, Judge McDonald, Attorney David James. We want to thank you guys for helping host this, and we'd like to thank the Mainville Sportsman's Club and Jerry for all the work they put in. If you're into shooting sports, this is a great place to join. There's a low yearly membership, and they're expanding the activities and the programs here, and the range. And we'd like to thank Kurt's Gun Shop in Littletonville too as a sponsor of this event. So at this time we're going to start out saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and Doyle Shadle is going to lead us. So if you would stand, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Mark Ryman, by the way, and I'll be the moderator tonight. Our format is going to be, we're going to take open questions from anybody in the audience. I'll just point out, you raise your hands, we'd ask you to stand and give your question, and both candidates will have a chance to answer them. We're going to start out with Attorney David James, who's going to tell you a little about himself, and then Judge McDonald will, and then we will start with questions. Thank you.
So I would just echo everything that, I don't think I need that. I'll just echo everything that he said. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work everybody's put in. Mr. Shadle, I appreciate the phone call inviting me. I really do. Mr. McDonald and I discussed having a very brief introduction. My name is David James. I'm an attorney in Bloomsburg. And as you're all here, I guess you can guess that I am running for Judge of the Common Pleas Court of the 26th Judicial District. So I'll hand it off to Attorney McDonald.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay in the back? My name is Judge Anthony McDonald. I've been practicing law in the Columbia County area for a little over 30 years before I became judge. I have an amazing wife, Pam, who's here this evening, 2 children who both graduated from Central Schools and from Bloomsburg University. One's a registered nurse and one's a teacher, which means we don't have to take care of them anymore, so we're very happy about that. So I'll echo what Attorney James said. Very happy to be here tonight. Thank you to the Mainville Sportsman's Club and for the group putting this together and giving us the opportunity to let you folks learn a little bit more about us. So thank you all.
And in case anybody wonders, we'll be cutting it off about 7:30 tonight. So we'll just open the questions up. Who would like to go first?
Now we could make this like law school where we call on people. That's very uncomfortable.
Okay, right there.
I'd like to have both the candidates describe what strengths they feel they're bringing to the position if they were to be elected.
Thank you very much for the question, sir. A lot of the strengths that I think I have as an attorney are going to carry over to the judge. I think I'm extremely hardworking, I'm efficient. If you talk to my clients as well as the other attorneys who work against me or are on the other side of the aisle, I'm very reasonable. Those I think are 3 of the most important things that you can have as a judge. And on top of that, I think I have a lot of common sense. And that's what I think we need in our judiciary when making decisions to use common sense. So I would say, in short, those are some of the assets that I believe I can bring to the position.
Ed, how are you this evening? So, as indicated previously, I practiced law for 30 years before I was appointed as judge back in February. Some of the assets that I can bring to this job is I was a public defender for 5 years part-time. I always had an office in Berwick since 1994. I was an assistant district attorney for 10 years. I was a Columbia County solicitor for 15 years. At the end of 2024, I represented 32 municipal entities, everything from planning commissions to zoning hearing boards to townships to boroughs to municipal authorities to Columbia County. In addition to that, I have vast courtroom experience. I've had over 30 jury trials to verdict. If you're wondering, according to ABA statistics, at the end of 2024, there were 1.3 million attorneys in the United States. 0.53% of those are considered trial attorneys. I am a trial attorney. I know my way around the courtroom. I will treat every person who comes before me with dignity and respect. I will listen to them. I want them to leave, even if I have to sentence them to jail, feeling like they were treated fairly and got to have their say. Does that answer your question?
Okay, who would be next? Okay, go ahead.
What if your personal opinion about something differs from what the law says? How would the two of you handle that?
Okay, so the Judicial Code of Ethics under Rule 4.1 indicates that there's an overarching judicial obligation to apply and uphold the law, regardless of one's personal opinions, okay? We're allowed to state what our personal opinions are in certain circumstances, but the overall, overarching is the word they use, which is a very serious word. You have to apply and uphold the law. Judges have discretion in sentencing cases for in criminal matters. They have what are called the sentencing guidelines, which say you can sentence somebody from 9 to 18 months, so you have some discretion there. In divorce cases and custody cases, you have some discretion there. Support cases, you have some discretion. But the overarching rule is that you must uphold and apply the law as it's given to you.
And you would feel comfortable doing that?
You have to do that. That's the only way it can be just and fair for everybody.
So I guess I want to answer that same question. But the answer to that for me is the same thing that I've been saying since day one. The last time that I had one of these is that the law is what it is. It does not matter your personal belief. It doesn't matter about your political affiliations. In fact, a judge cannot even discuss their political affiliations. That's part of the rule. There was recently, in 2023, a judge who was removed from office because discussing on Facebook numerous Facebook posts about their affiliation, their disagreement with certain public policies, their disagreement with politicians. The law is what it is. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, the people in front of you. It is what it is, and the law has to be followed. And that's what I would do.
Okay. I simply have this out here in case anybody needs it, asking a question, but who would like to be next? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Supreme Court Justice David Souter just passed away last week. But while he was on the Supreme Court, one of the cases that came up was Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And the majority of the justices said, we think that how we ruled in the past was wrong, but we're going to keep doing what we did because now we think that what we said is the new law of the land. What do you do if you figure out that you did make a mistake in the past? Do you continue down that path? That would have the idea that the law is fluid and changes with time, or does the law stay the same as when it was penned?
So I guess I'm going to ask for a little bit of clarification on your question. Are you talking about the law as it pertains to the position that we're talking about and we're running for now? Or are you talking about the Supreme Court of the United States and how Supreme Court justices apply or think of the law?
Well, I guess my question was, how do you, when you read the law, does it mean the same thing now as when it was penned, or does the law change over time as we distance ourselves from that moment?
Okay, so if you're thinking about the different laws that we have, they're all statutory in nature, most of them. We have some case law that interprets it from the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. But The way that I look at it is that the written statute, plain language, the ordinary language that you read it, there is no ambiguity. That's what the law says. So as a judge, if I were to make a mistake on how that law is interpreted, somebody appeals it, it goes to the Superior Court, it gets sent back saying, hey, you screwed up. This isn't the way the law was written. You screwed up. You have to fix it. You have to follow what the law says, regardless if you think you were right the first time. If the courts say you're not, you're not.
To follow up on that, there's a vast difference between what we would do as judges and what the United States Supreme Court does. They do have the final say on the interpretation of the law. As you indicated, I do believe that the law does develop over time. You may have a written statute, but the statute is challenged in court many, many times. And there are cases that are issued by the Superior Court or the Commonwealth Court or the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that say, this is how we've interpreted this law. So you have to look at the statute, but you also have to look at the case law that comes along, because if you take the real estate tax sale law in Pennsylvania, I think that was written in 1948. So it's a horrible law. It contradicts itself in many different areas, but there are hundreds and perhaps thousands of cases that have interpreted that law since 1948. So you do have to do some research and see where the latest appeals court decision is and how that may reflect on your case. Some opinions from the Superior Court or the Commonwealth Court come down and they say non-precedential. That means it's only about that specific case, but some of them are precedential, and some of them may slightly change the statute. Does that answer your question, or have I confused you?
I appreciate both of your answers. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? There, go ahead, sir.
I understand most of your, well, I guess opinions, I'll use the word opinion, for lack of a better word, come in the leeway you have in sentencing guidelines. Correct. And in today's society, sometimes it seems as though the same people keep coming back and back and back. And the penalties only pressure up sometimes. What is your stance on that?
So, I was just in court yesterday in Montour County, and I think I had 10 or 12 sentencings that came before me. Judges are restricted by the sentencing guidelines, and you can have certain factors where you would mitigate a sentence, where you can go outside of the sentencing guidelines, and you have other factors where you can aggravate a sentence by going outside the guidelines. But even then, the guidelines tell you you can only mitigate 3 months to 6 months or aggravate 3 months to 6 months. So far, I haven't been in office long enough to have a case where I felt the need to aggravate or mitigate. I felt that the sentencing guidelines were sufficient for the crime that came before me. I understand what you're saying. I've been doing this for 30 years, okay? I can't mention any names, but you see the same names coming into court frequently. And there's a couple of names I can think of where I had the great-grandkids, the grandkids, the kids, and grandfathers. So, it is what it is. People break the law. The guidelines have just been changed recently, and they're actually easier on defendants than the previous set of guidelines were. And a person's prior record is taken into account. So if you're a first-time offender, you're coming before the court with a 0 prior record score, okay? Where another person might have what's called RFEL, which is a repeat felon prior record score. And each crime has attached to it a offense gravity score. There's literally a chart that we use. And that lands you where you are within the guidelines. So first-time offender is going to be treated much differently than a repeat felon is going to be treated under the sentencing guidelines.
Well, I gotta say, I've sat in the last 30 years in the courtroom and listened, just sporadically, gone and listened to different trials to see what it is. So I get a feeling, well, about 4 or 5 different judges, I get a feeling that the guidelines are more open than you think. They're just guidelines. Well, you said guidelines, so these are guidelines.
I don't name them, but there's what's called a standard range sentence. And unless you have a reason under the law to mitigate, which is to go below the standard range, or aggravate, which is to go above the standard range, which you have to state on the record, and statutorily there are reasons for doing that, you're stuck within the standard range.
And I would agree with most of what Mr. McDonald said. There are standard range sentences, there are aggravated range sentences, mitigated range sentences, based upon the facts that are presented at a sentencing hearing. Those things have been determined by the legislature. The court can't do a whole lot about that, even if we wanted to. One of the things you mentioned repeat offenders. Repeat offenders in certain circumstances, what we do in Columbia and Montour County, for example, drug offenses and DUIs, alcohol offenses like that, is that we have our treatment court programs. Our treatment court programs are fantastic. What they do is they allow people to enter in a very rigorous, could be up to 3-year, 4-year program, where it's really a rehabilitation to get those people to a point where they're not reoffending anymore, as opposed to just sending them to jail for a year for their 3rd DUI, let them out, and then there's been no counseling or therapy. So for repeat offenders in Columbia, Montour County, for specific offenses, I think we have a lot of things that can help not have the continuous offenses occur.
Okay, next question, please. Oh, right over here.
Going along with sentencing, we have a firearms assault problem in this country, and it's not by the good people. All right, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, backer, own firearms. But felon plus firearm equals 5 years, hard time. No parole, no probation. That is plea bargained away so many times at the federal and state level. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania, Commonwealth, it's mostly the blue cities, Allentown, Philadelphia especially, and Pittsburgh. If you had a case come before you that included a felon with a firearm, and if he's a felon, he already got convicted once, would you consider rejecting a plea for that? Keeping that on so he's at least guaranteed a hard 5 in prison, not let out because of COVID or other complicated story of that nature?
Well, once again, I have to fall back on there's a overarching obligation to apply the law and understand the law. Judges do have the ability to object to plea bargains that have been made between the defense and the Commonwealth. They do have that right to do that. And can't speak case specific because you have to look at the facts and the laws that comes before you. But once again, repeat felons are treated more harshly by the guidelines than a first-time offender would be.
And well, it should.
And I too am a huge Second Amendment supporter. I mean, I'm a certified rear safety officer, NRA life member. I collect guns. I teach firearms law at gun courses. So, as Justice Thomas has said many times, the Second Amendment is not a second-class amendment and shouldn't be treated as such. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So I would echo that response. That's a hypothetical question that could be a case of controversy that's before the court, and I don't believe that we can answer it. Gun violence, I think that there are some things that we as a society could do One is education and training, educate people who are gun owners, train people who are gun owners. The better educated we are, the better trained we are, the less likely there are going to be any issues. Train people not to leave their loaded firearm on a table where, you know, their 6-year-old could come pick it up and shoot their sibling. I think mental health counseling is a big issue, especially where we are. The courts definitely don't have enough services available to the people in the system, as well as issues with drugs and alcohol. So I think if we can combat those things, that can do a lot to the underlying problem, which you said is gun violence and gun deaths.
Yeah, and I'd love to follow up on that if I could. The more I've been around firearms, and the longer I've been around firearms, the more respect I have for them and how dangerous they are. I do believe that there should be training before a person who's never owned a handgun walks into a gun store and buys a gun, buys a box of shells, loads it, and then carries it. To me, there's a huge difference between standing at a range and shooting at a target as opposed to actually pulling the sidearm out of a holster and shooting it. People who don't value these severe consequences and who don't value just how dangerous firearms can be in an untrained person's hands, that is a problem, and that should be addressed.
Can you guys hear in the back okay? Okay. Let's see. Question back here? Okay.
Gotta
Do you have
speak
a
up.
question? Okay. So we could give each of these guys a handheld mic if it would help.
We'll pick it up.
We'll be loud.
Yeah, we'll be loud.
I think
Okay.
facing that way, that's the problem.
Okay, next question, please.
There's a lady over.
Yep, right there in the middle.
I was just wondering if you do any charitable work or volunteer work, or I would like to get to know more about you guys. They're talking about what your opinions would be on stuff, but I want to know about you guys because I don't know you at all. So just more about you and your charitable work or things like that.
Absolutely. So I came back to Bloomsburg about 9 some odd months ago. Since then, I'm currently on a number of boards in Columbia County Traveling Library Board. I've been on there, I want to think, for about 4 or 5 years now. The YMCA board in Bloomsburg, I've been on there for about 2 or 3. I just turned off of what is now the Susquehanna Valley United Way. There's another one that is escaping on, I am on the Columbia Montour Eagle Scout, Boy Scout Eagle Scout Review Board. I more recently got into that. I've been on it for a while, but unfortunately, Jack Mahalik, who was kind of the godfather of the Eagle Scout Review Board, passed away a few years ago, and we tried to pick up the slack, I think, from that. In my legal career, I've tried to do as much pro bono work as possible. I do represent a lot of organizations that, it's less than what we would charge an hour. It's not pro bono technically, but I am the pro bono solicitor and have been, I think, for about 5 years now for Agape in Bloomsburg. I worked as a solicitor for Beyond Violence in Berwick, doing plaintiff work for protection from abuse, petitions and cases. I've done children and youth work through the courthouse, those are court-appointed work. And I'd like to think that anybody that comes and asks for a nonprofit corporation to be created, for the last couple of years, I've done that pro bono as well. So that's, in short, what I'm trying to do at least.
I am the past president of the Berwick Rotary Club. I believe I was in Rotary for about 12 years. I'm the twice chairman of the Berwick Area Chamber of Commerce, which has now been folded into the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. So I was the chairperson of that for 2 years. Past board member of the Berwick Library Association before it became the McBride Memorial Library. Recognized by Beyond Violence, Inc. for, quote, extraordinary efforts to end domestic violence. Just as Attorney James, I did a lot of pro bono work for that organization, and I felt that that was very important work to do. I'm a past board member of the Berwick Area Swimming Pool Incorporated. I'm a member of my church council. I'm a member of a social justice circle, which is working on the homeless problem in Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia counties. And we're using the libraries as a base for that. Being homeless in, just talk about Columbia County, they're hidden in plain sight. Up behind the courthouse is the old Rosemont Cemetery. I like to walk through there. It's peaceful. Nobody bothers me. Nobody talks to me. And one day I was coming around a curve and over a hill, and I saw something that was bright. I thought it was maybe a flag next to a grave. There were people living in tents in the cemetery. And as I came up, they all started running, and I'm like, hey, I'm just taking a walk. You don't have to run away on my account. In Berwick, they live in the stormwater drains, which are huge drains 10 feet around. When the crews go in to clean them out or clean the filters, they find sleeping bags, they find tents, they find all detritus of folks that are living in there. We have one homeless shelter for Columbia and Montour County. It's called the Gatehouse. Not sure the exact number of beds they have, but I think it's 12 beds. So that's very important work for me right now. I've been a member of that group for several years. And just recently, this year, Community Strategies Group and the Columbia County Commissioners joined together to hire a homeless liaison. The person's going to be an employee of Community Strategies Group, but the county is paying half the person's salary, and there's a grant for the other half. The county committed to 3 years on that to see if it works, because there's all these diverse groups like my social justice circle. We need somebody to pull us all together and work on that problem. So, look, folks, it's easy to say, lock them up and throw away the key. Okay? It costs in Columbia County $39,000 per year to keep one person in our prison for a year. Some 6 months ago or so, I guess there was talk of arresting homeless people for trespassing and putting them in jail. I pay property taxes, so do you. Do you want them sitting in jail $39,000 a year? I don't. Like Attorney James mentioned earlier, we have to come up with solutions to these problems that present themselves and aren't necessarily criminal. So that's what I've been doing.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
I think that this question probably goes right along with the previous question, and that is, what role do you think that charities and nonprofits can play in mitigating the situations that cause people to enter and re-enter the court system? And then how do you see yourselves as part of that solution or solutions?
I don't think the government can do it on its own, because we are the government, and we only have so much money. Especially homeowners are hit with school property taxes, and every penny that the county spends, unless they get it through a grant, is coming from property taxes and other fees that they charge at the courthouse. So I think that 501c3 groups play a huge part. Recently involved in the setting up of a 501c13 group for the old Higley Church Cemetery, where that church unfortunately has closed due to lack of people coming to Sunday services. It's not the only church that's closed in Columbia County in the last year. So they're turning that cemetery over to North Center Township, who's going to keep it as a cemetery and keep the buildings in a historical nature. I think it's incredibly important for people to step forward. What you find, and I'm sure Attorney James found the same thing, you get on these different boards, and if you're on enough of them, it's all the same people on the boards. So the volunteer rate could be higher, and we're always welcoming new members who would like to help. Does that answer your question?
So how do you encourage, or how do you make way for those charitable organizations to become a solution to basically the recidivism that you see in the courts, the crime, because they need to play a role in preventing crime?
Well, if for instance, a charitable organization wants to come through and open a halfway house, okay, as Attorney James mentioned, we have in recent years treatment courts. That would give judges an option for where to place people other than jail. A lot of times people come out of jail, they have nowhere to go. So they instantly become homeless, and of course then they start breaking the law again. So as a judge, I'm not sure what control we can have over who wants to set up a 501c3 or C13 or any iteration thereof. But I certainly believe that they need to play a major role in giving us further options. I think the county has one apartment complex with 4 units for people coming out of jail.
Through community strategy group.
Right, through the community strategies group. So we've just got 4 right now, and we have a lot more people coming out of jail that may not be hardened criminals. They made a mistake, they broke the law, they went to jail, they come out, they've lost everything. They need a helping hand to get going again so that we don't have to put them back in jail.
So, thanks for that question. I don't think nonprofits are the answer for the struggle of people reoffending. I certainly think they're a key in helping fix the issue, if the issue can be fixed, depending upon each person that we're talking about. Nonprofits have so many different areas that they're trying to touch on, that it's almost like just, dumping a cup of water in a 5-gallon bucket with holes in it. I think there's a lot of different parties that need to come together, work together to help not only the recidivism problem, getting people back on their feet, but also just issues in general. The Susquehanna Valley United Way is always trying to help people in all sorts of different circumstances. Bloomsburg area YMCA has, I think it's a couple months old now, a community hub where people can show up and they attempt to try and get, facilitate help for whatever issues that person is dealing with. But there are so many issues that we have, even in this small community, that I don't think one type of organization is going to be enough. It has to be everybody. It has to be the government. Grants for mental health counseling, mental health services through the courts. One of the things that we've seen, I think, Ms. McDonald can agree, is that we have mental health services in our area. There's not nearly enough, and there's certainly not nearly enough that want to get involved with people who are in the court system, because that can result in them having to come to court, and not many people want to do that. So I think that is one step that we could take, perhaps through a nonprofit, to help people who need it.
I was thinking of an organization like Prison Fellowship, for example, that, if somebody is in prison and they take part in Prison Fellowship, that might somehow help, lessen their sentence, or maybe help get them into an apartment, CSU apartment or something like that. So Prison Fellowship has been around for decades. It's got a very good track record with the people that it has served.
Certainly an interesting idea.
As an example.
Yes.
Okay, who would like to be next? Okay, right over there.
Hello, good evening. I have been an attorney for over 35 years, and one of the things I hear from clients and individuals that I talk to is the length of time it takes to get through the system, whether it's civil or whether it's criminal. I just want to know what plans either of you have to try to make the system more efficient, to speed up the time it takes to get a decision.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that will always help fix that issue is hard work. Hard work from the judiciary, getting the cases in, making the decisions, thoughtful decisions, because you have to be efficient, you have to work hard. There are some circumstances where you have too many cases and not enough people to make those decisions, it could be the case. But efficiency and hard work obviously is going to be the best way for resolution of cases in a fast and a more expedient manner. The other issue is, I think that there is a lot of wasted time in our court systems. Things scheduled, they get canceled when they wouldn't have to be. Certain court proceedings that I think can be condensed in a much more efficient manner than they currently are. So I think there's a lot of different ways we can do it, but the number one's going to be hard.
I've seen it since I've been on the bench. Cases from 2017 that are laying on my desk now. Cases where somebody filed for an emergency petition for special relief in July of 2024, and it's just landing on my desk now. The problem we had in Columbia County is the county's been asking for a third judge for a very long time, years in fact. Now that there are 3 judges there, I believe that through efficiency and hard work, the cases will start to move more quickly. I picture it almost as turning a super tanker in the ocean. You know, you turn the wheel or whatever they have in the super tanker, and it takes a half a mile for it to start turning. We have a backlog of approximately 800 criminal cases in Columbia County, and it seems no matter how hard they try, they'll get down to 750, then it'll go back up to 800. The judges have control over scheduling of trials. There's some talk of going to 10 trial terms per year in Columbia County now that we have 3 judges. That's not my decision to make, that would be the decision of the president judge. So there are ideas out there, but as Attorney James indicates, it just comes down to hard work. Literally, I try as soon as something hits my desk to get it done and get it back out the door.
Thank you.
Okay, next question.
I'm asking for your personal opinion on this because I don't know that there's any laws that cover this in Pennsylvania. Supposing a 12-year-old girl was suing her parents because she wanted to transition into a male, or like, vice versa, into a female. They're 12. What would be your opinion on that?
Could you repeat the question? Not yourself, but just somebody loud enough that we could.
Sorry.
Yeah, we hear the mic here. Here you go.
Okay, personal opinion, because I don't know that Pennsylvania has a set law on this. Supposing a 12-year-old child was suing their parents because they wanted to transition into the other sex, what guidelines would you follow even?
To the best of my knowledge, there is currently no law or statute on that situation in Pennsylvania. I believe that would fall under the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act, which indicates broadly that you shall not discriminate on the basis of sex. It then goes over to an administrative agency called the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission, which indicates currently that sexual orientation and sexual ideology is considered to fall under the protection of the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act. That's the current nature of the law. As a parent, I know there are other states where that has happened, and I can just say that I haven't seen it here in Pennsylvania. And as a father, I'd be devastated if that happened to me. But as a judge, I'll have to follow whatever the law is and try and figure it out since we don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't believe there is any law in Pennsylvania regarding any type of transition. And as a result, without law to follow, I'm going to have to give the answer that nobody wants me to give, is that I don't believe that I can't answer your question, because it falls under the Code of Judicial Conduct, where a case or controversy that may land in front of, the court, we cannot prejudge that. There are facts that we don't know. And in fact, I can tell you that there have been cases about, not specifically yours, but have gone through the court system. So I believe a situation like that absolutely has a possibility of coming before a court in Columbia, Montour County. And as a result, I can't answer that question.
Okay, Stacy.
As a parent, what are the rights of a 12-year-old?
There are no laws in Pennsylvania.
The parent doesn't have any rights.
Parents have rights. There's parental rights.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if that came to your table, what grounds do the parents stand?
I'm going to answer that question as I have every single time it's been brought up. I believe that answering would be a violation of the Code of Judicial Conduct, because it is a case of controversy that could come before the court.
So parents don't have rights.
It's not what I said.
I know,
Okay.
but you're not saying they do.
Great.
Parents do have rights.
Okay.
What the level of those rights are has not yet been decided in Pennsylvania. And Attorney James is correct, that may very well land on our desk. The only answer that I can give you on a personal level would be that if I were the parent, I'd be devastated by that. But as a judge, that could very well, and I know there are cases working their way through the system in other counties right now, so we really can't comment
I
on
get that.
on that.
I'm just curious if the parents
But
have
parents,
anything to stand by.
parents do have rights, yes.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Okay. Yep, in the back.
Given the ongoing concern about the gun violence, what do you think is the role of judiciary in addressing the local laws so that there's enough safety and these are handled effectively? Like, I understand the mental health concerns, teaching about the gun safety, but how does everyone feel safe that our kids are safe at school? Like, we don't always have to be reactive. What is it ever going to be something that is going to be done at a proactive level? Like, for example, when every patient, when everyone goes to a doctor's visit, there's always a question: do you have any mental illness? Do you own a gun? And we as physicians always feel like, okay, even if you ask this question, what exactly are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Even if somebody says yes or no, somebody has a diagnosis of depression or anxiety in their chart, there's nothing that we can do about it. So should it be up to only the lawmakers that how are we going to handle this issue, making sure that these are handled effectively and our children feel safe, or the local courts can do something about it?
Well, I think that countrywide, there's a tendency not to enforce the gun laws that we already have on the books. I think there are plenty of gun laws currently on the books in the state of Pennsylvania. Judges, of course, have to follow those laws, have to understand those laws. Just because of my own personal hobbies, I understand that area of the law very well. There's certain instances, we have what are called protection from abuse orders, where the court has the authority to remove firearms from a person who may be indicating that they're going to harm somebody else. Your question about doctors asking that question, there's mandatory reporting for certain professionals when they see child abuse. To the best of my knowledge, there's no mandatory reporting on behalf of a doctor if you think that someone should not have a firearm. So I can't really go any further than that, because that too is a developing area of the law, but we need to enforce the laws that we have right now. And the only control we would have over that is plea bargains and sentencing.
So, I'm sorry. So in that case, God forbid, if something ever happens and it comes back to, okay, the patient or the person who did something wrong, they already had a history of depression or anxiety. That depression doesn't mean that they have to be at a point where, God forbid, everybody can notice every day that they are depressed. All something, it always comes down to, oh, they have this medical illness, so they should be granted some leverage that it's not their fault 100%. But would there ever be any changes in the law where, okay, just like you said, there's matters about children abuse or something, where, okay, this person has this issue and we need to address it, that maybe they should not be carrying a firearm?
There are always changes in the law. But once again, the changes in the law are started by folks like you talking to their legislatures and saying, we need this change. And then it goes to our state government and they make the law. We have to follow whatever law they make. And with very little discretion other than sentencing and in accepting or denying plea bargains.
I'm going to answer your question in a disappointing fashion as well. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, the judiciary is an independent, non-political, non-lawmaking body. We're completely different than both the executive and the legislative branches. We take the laws that have been created by the legislature and we rule on those laws. And until there is something done at that level to address the concerns that you have, there's nothing that either of us could really do. And I appreciate your question because that is a significant concern in our society. But unfortunately, the judiciary is not the avenue to make those changes.
Okay. Jill.
I was going to go emotional about this question. Do either of you candidates believe in objective truth? And with that, can you please provide for me the definition of a woman?
Objective truth meaning what? So I guess I don't know what that is.
Could you hand her a microphone, please?
Yeah, we can hear.
Do either of you believe in objective truth versus subjective truth? Okay, so objective truth. And can you please provide for me the definition of a woman?
Well, I guess I'll start off with that. I've watched enough videos that I believe that is a very political question. We can see, I've seen plenty of videos on both sides. The judiciary is a non-political entity. And that type of question really is going back to the transgender question. So I'm not going to answer that question. I don't know what the objective truth is. But yeah, I think that's a political question that politics plays no role in the judiciary.
I would simply say that my personal opinion is I know what a woman is and I know what a man is.
Okay, thank you. Over here, Bill.
Yes, do you personally support the passage of red flag laws regarding firearms ownership? And second part of the question, do you have a concealed carry permit and how long?
I've had a concealed carry permit for, I'm guessing here, Bill, 15 years? 15 years. As I said, I'm very involved in shooting sports. Had a hunting license last year, but figured I'm getting too old to drag a deer out of the woods. And red flag laws, once again, to me, it's a due process issue. And Clarence Thomas saying that the Second Amendment was not a second-class amendment, that strict scrutiny would have to be applied to whatever decision is being made. But you're basically removing people's firearms without due process, although they typically say they have to have a hearing within so many days on that. We don't currently have those in Pennsylvania unless you want to call a PFA or a PFI a red flag law. That's the only area that I'm familiar with, unless a person's been charged with a crime or been convicted of a crime would take the firearms off.
Would you support the passage of that legislation that would result in legislation?
I have to see the legislation. If it's going to remove firearms from people without due process, then the answer would be no.
So I would, I guess, first, I do not have a carry permit. I know plenty, what's that?
Shame on you.
I know plenty of people who do, and I'm glad they have. We talk about it all the time. So, no, and when it comes to the red flag laws, those are, I mean, I'm not familiar with them because, as Mr. McDonald said, there don't seem to be any in Columbia County or Pennsylvania. There are statutes for certain offenses that can remove people's gun rights. If someone has a PFA, during the pendency of that PFA, they can. If someone is involuntary or voluntarily committed, they can also lose their firearm rights. There are ways now more easily to get those back through petitioning the court. So, and without knowing what they would be, I don't think I can speak to that. But if whatever law they came in front of me would be followed, and that's all I can say to any question. Whatever the law is, they follow.
Okay, thank you. Another question in the back there?
Are you both lifelong Republicans?
Since 2024, when I registered, I think, 2022?
2020?
Oh, sorry, 2004, yeah. Sorry. I believe there was some 30 seconds last Friday, which thank goodness the press responded to, but no, I've been a registered Republican since I could vote.
I too, as long as I can remember, have been a registered Republican. My family's Republican, that's just the way I was raised.
Okay. In the center.
I don't know either of you gentlemen personally. I know you by name, and I'm not really that familiar with you. Probably more familiar with Attorney James' name than because of doing some of his partners doing some work for us. But you've been very courteous to one another here this evening, very professional. I'm assuming you're probably friends on a professional level, but I'm going to ask a hard question. Why should I vote for one of you versus the other? I'm not asking you to sling mud or anything like that. You haven't done so far, and I appreciate that. But what sets you apart? Why should I vote for you versus the opponent? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I need to put you on the spot because I don't know you other than what I read on your flyers, what I read in the paper, and I know that some of the people here you have personal relationships with, but I'm concerned about my vote. So why you versus the opponent?
Attorney James and I agreed very early on in this matter that we were not going to engage in personal attacks upon one another. We've had third parties who have attacked both of us, but we have not attacked one another.
I'm not asking you to attack one another.
I don't feel I need to attack him to answer your question.
Okay, what are your strong points that I should vote for you? I'm not asking you to attack one. I would expect that of you from what I've seen so far this evening with how you handled it.
I can answer your question without
Okay.
attacking Mr. James.
Thank you.
I've been an attorney twice as long as he has. I have much more court experience than Mr. James does. I have had, as I said earlier, 30-plus jury trials to verdict. I believe Mr. James hasn't had any jury trials. As I've indicated, only 0.53% of the attorneys in the United States do jury work. The reason for that is it's very hard work. It's very difficult. You have to be quick on your feet, and you have to know the law, and you have to be able to know how to talk to people. I have that. Mr. James does not. I can be compassionate when I need to be. I can also be very hard when I have to be. And I bring years of attending public meetings like this with all the municipalities. I I had to represent. I learned how to deal with large crowds of people. I learned how to talk to people. I've learned how to present myself in public. And I'll fall back again and say, and I'm not saying Attorney James wouldn't do this, but every person who comes in front of me, I'm not going to know them, because if I do know them, I probably shouldn't be hearing the case, okay? So all I'm going to know is the paperwork that I have in front of me. So what can I do to make myself know that person? I can review everything I have. And in sentencing cases, that would include a pre-sentence investigation report, which will tell you something about the person's life. Sometimes they just do a record check, but they have an attorney who can tell me about it. I'm going to listen to that with an open mind, and then I'm going to make my decision as to whether I need to be compassionate or I need to be hard. Frankly, the only difference between the two of us is years of experience that I have and the type of work that I've done. I literally retired from the district attorney's office in September as an assistant district attorney, and Attorney James took my position. So, and I believe he was also been a public defender for a period of time. That's the difference, and that's why you should vote for me.
And I appreciate the answer, you know, that's,
Well, thank you for the question. I guess I'll start off by saying I already kind of mentioned on some of the qualities that I think would make me the best candidate for this. I will guarantee you that there's no chance that anybody would work harder. I have not been practicing as long as Mr. McDonald, but I don't think necessarily years of experience means that you're necessarily the better candidate. Diversity of experience, depth of experience. I'm extremely passionate about the law, passionate about what I do. I think that the legal system and our court system can do so much good for people. My law partner sitting back there in the back, I saw her sneak in. She can attest to you that I get made fun of by some of my colleagues for being so passionate and being about the law, whether it's statutory interpretation, reading case law. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to that type of stuff. It's true, I've never done a jury trial, but if doing a jury trial is the ultimate pinnacle for what makes a good attorney or a good judge specifically, there are only two types of attorneys that can be a judge. Those are criminal attorneys and certain civil attorneys. 40% of the cases that we handle, at least on paper, and I bet you court time is more, in Columbia and Monroe County are family law cases. The last 6-7 years, I would estimate that I've been in court just as much on those types of cases as any attorney in Columbia and Monroe County. And this next judge position is going to be handling all of those types of cases, or at least half of them, I would expect. Yeah, half. So I'm intimately familiar with the majority of what I've been walking into as a judge. I know Mr. McDonald has significant work in municipal law, and that's not something that comes in front of the court all that often. And then when it comes to jury trials, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe in the last 15 years, I think he has 2 more than I do. And I don't know if I'm correct on that, but that was my research. So I would be the hardest working jurist, not saying that Mr. McDonald will not work hard, but I have a work ethic that I think is unlike anybody else's. I'm at the office at 5:30, 6:30 in the morning, almost every single day, answering emails until I fall asleep like 9:30. But so that's why I believe I'm the best candidate, and you should vote for me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We have time for just one more quick question.
So my question would be, I know that this does not determine how you would carry yourself in a sentencing as a judge, but neither does your background, which I appreciated knowing your background as far as being volunteers or on boards, etc., chairmans, etc. I appreciate knowing that. So since none of those areas of which you have volunteered or been on boards are relevant to whether I vote for either one of you. This is not going to be, this is a question that would not term how you would make a decision in a courtroom, but because there were personal questions and you answered how you have volunteered or been involved. I would like to know if either of you profess to be a Christian, and if so, what is your definition of being a Christian?
I guess that's fine. I will tell you this, I'm working towards that. Growing up, I was involved in the church a lot. It was difficult for me to accept what a lot of people were telling me that was what God said. So over the last couple of months, I had the opportunity through some really great friends to invite me back to the church. I've been going on a relatively regular basis. I don't know where my faith is yet, so I don't think I can go beyond telling you that I'm working to get there. But I think the principles of Christianity are something that I lead my life by, be kind to others, do what you feel is right, have a good moral compass. So when it comes to whether or not I'm a Christian, I can say it's a journey that I'm on.
I would answer the question with a resounding yes, I am. Am I a perfect Christian? No. I work on it every day. I was in a seminary for 10 years, studying to be a minister. I'm very active in my church. I'm on the parish council. I attend services regularly unless I'm sick. It's a very important part of my life. I'm very involved with the Sisters of St. Cyril and Methodius in Danville. In fact, I'm going to be, they have what they call lay associates who help them in their work because they're getting older. And you have to go through a year-long process of study and instruction. On June 29th, I'm going to be, I'm not sure what the right word is, I'm going to become one of their associates. And I'm very proud of that fact. So any of us who are Christians know that it's a daily job that you have to do. I don't go to church on Sundays thinking I'm surrounded by saints. I think I'm surrounded by sinners. I put myself in that same category. And so yes, I'm a Christian. Will I ever be a saint? I hope to be when I die. But none of us knows for sure, do we? I could walk out the door right now and have a heart attack, and I'm feeling pretty good about where I am right now, but I'm not God.
Okay, and I think we'll wrap it up there. Please give these guys a round of applause. Thank you all for coming out to this event. And I was asked to let you know there will be campaign signs outside available. I'm not sure what goes out there, but if you want to pick some up,